When I got Nezha, I wasn't fond of him, and it was mostly down to his passive ability being weird. But that was my fault, because once I learned how to use that, Nezha became my favorite frame, and as of now, my most played one. And I even grew to love his slidey slide. Because if you learn how to tap it at the right time, you have an infinite speed boost. While it's not Titania's Mach 1 levels of speed, I find it quite neat for tile sets. And that is kind of how describing Nezha goes. He does a lot of things, but none of those are top tier, but all are solid. He's tanky, but not untouchable. He can heal and give energy, but far from being a high level support. He can protect, but there are a few that do it better. Give status immunity to allies, that's big. Crowd control he has is pretty solid, but range is not huge, and there are limitations to it. It has a damage buff, or rather a debuff to enemies, but despite it being very strong, it does not cover many enemies easily. When we combine his spears and chakram, we can get quite a decent nuke, just there's an RNG to it, and it might not work always, but it has a high potential. He can force a heat proc, which strips armor temporarily, and while it's probably the worst armor stripping capability as of now, it's another thing Nezha can do when needed. On top of it, enemies in proximity that get hit by Halo can take a slash proc, so that can also help with condition overload. Oh yeah, he can teleport as well, making it quite suitable for spy missions. While all may sound a bit complicated to execute, I do not think it is. His third ability, Halo, is something we should run all the time. It reduces damage by 90% and stuns and slashes nearby enemies. Safeguard Augment lets you use that on all sorts of allies. They all get 90% damage reduction and status immunity, but their Halo HP is half of what Nezha gets. But what's in my opinion his main ability is his 2, Chakram. It bounces between enemies, debuffs them significantly, forces heat procs to strip armor, and makes enemies drop health and energy orbs. And you can teleport to its location if you cast it again while Chakram is flying. But the major focus here is debuffing and maintaining health and energy. Heat proc and other things helps situationally. Reaping Chakram Augment adds combo to this ability, and that's how it works with Divine Spears, Nezha's 4. When you hit an enemy that's affected by spears, Chakram splits in 2 and goes for other spears, each of them increasing internal combo. That's why it has such a high potential, because it does not just debuff enemies and strip the armor, it also combos up with every hit. But it can be a hit and a miss because it has a wider hitbox than it seems, so it catches onto objects easily. That's why my build is mostly focusing on those 2 abilities, Halo and Chakram. We add health conversion, energy conversion, and equilibrium to feed off of what Chakram does. Health conversion adds high amount of armor, which helps Halo reach very high values. I think for my build the default value is around 15,000 HP for Halo, and that's without any damage taken. I've got a bit more strength with Transient Fortitude and Umbral Intensify, and a bit of duration because of my choice of helminth ability, which is Hildren's Pillage. It strips armor and shields of enemies, and range of that wave of pillage is mostly affected by its duration. But it's what we get back from it that works really well with Nezha. Since his first ability is something I do not use much, that was an easy sacrifice for me. But in something like Survival vs Infested, that ability is honestly overpowered. But to go back on Pillage, Pillage turns enemy armor and shields into overshields for a player. And reason that's so dope is because Nezha's Halo reduces incoming damage by 90%, including damage to shields. So that way, you don't only make enemies weaker, but you're also adding a lot of effective health on Nezha. Nezha treads an interesting line. Unlike Rhino, where more iron skin HP is just flat out better, on Nezha, it's not that simple. You see, when your Halo HP drops to 0, there's a sound cue, and you have a full second of invulnerability. Call it a Halo gate. But since Nezha still takes 10% of the damage, you can die before Halo drops, missing that overpowered invulnerability. So while we did build for a rather high Halo HP, swapping Pillage in puts Nezha's effective HP in a much better place to make very good use of that Halo gate. Lots of shields also protects your HP, so you're not too exposed to losing stacks of health conversion. And with this combo, it's quite recommended to use synth fiber on your companion, so you pick up health orbs even when your health is full to enable equilibrium, even when your health is full. Adaptation only helps with that 10% of damage you're taking, so I'm not using that mod. Aura mod is down to your choice, I feel like, but the XLS mod has to be mobilized for a simple reason that Nezha's slide is so damn fast that his bullet jumps feel slow in comparison. Mobilize kinda levels that out, and Nezha is where I started using that mod. Now we use it everywhere, and if you ask me which is the best mod in the game, you may not like the answer. When it comes to arcanes of choice, I feel like Nezha's tankiness lets him use Arcane Avenger pretty much for free. Second arcane is on you. If you don't like shenanigans with health conversion, you can use some armor there, but many other things work. Since Nezha spawns energy orbs, then using energy conversion is something that can turn Nezha into a decent support for your team, but it's not needed for himself, not one bit. I swap around those arcanes. Using a new arcane blessing can be neat if you want to run a pet in your loadout. And that's about it. For me, the major reason I like Nezha so much is because he can have a viable role in almost every mission in the game, regardless of your team's composition. He doesn't take over the game like some frames do, but he has a bunch of tools that let you have fun no matter what. He's also pacey enough for me, and since his super slidey slide is his passive, I don't have to manage it like an ability. Just make sure not to slide into walls or objects. And that's probably his only drawback, that it takes a bit of practice to master that movement, but once you do, it's quite rewarding. And it's not that hard to build him. Even with a full build, there's room for 2 augments on top of having a bit of everything. I guess if you want some range, you can ditch some ability strength, but I don't use his for all that much, apart from when I see a crowd in the open that's just there for reaping chakram fun. You can obviously build more specialized builds, like put Warcry with some health and armor for a melee build, or sacrifice lots of survivability for high rage crowd control. What I did with this is I tried to find a sweet spot, and despite me changing my main build a few times since I mained Nezha, this build has been something I kept for quite a while now. It's a frame with which I always feel comfy, and I'm loving it. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.